Hello viewers, I am Lakshmi Padmanabhan. Welcome to Gandhi Hacks in South Africa. Monogamy, bigamy, polygamy and telegamy. Telegamy means long distance marriage. Well, Mohandas Gandhi and Kasturba were obliged to lead this last mentioned type of married life. They lived in two places and yet remained married. So after 15 years of marriage, for the first time in their lives, they found themselves living together after Gandhi brought Kasturba to Natal in 1897. For the first time, Mohandas Gandhi had to shoulder the responsibilities of a householder, a husband and a father. And we find him executing all these roles with unusual involvement. We'll have a peep into those very close, intimate challenges and events of their life in Natal. The first challenge was the education of the children. Nephew Goguldas, 10, son Harilal, 9, and second son Manilal, 5, all were of the school-going group. Which school would he send these children to in Natal? There were two types of schools in Natal at that time. First was the schools run for the children of European parents. Only European parents could send their children, but they might have made an exception for Mohandas Gandhi. They might have allowed his children there, but then on principle he would not avail of this privilege. There was also another reason why he could not think of sending them to these schools, because there could be discrimination there. The other boys might laugh at these children, they might harass them because of the color of their skin. Now the second type of school was the schools run by the Christian missions. That also was not a choice for Mohandas Gandhi because of many reasons. Reason number one was that they taught through English medium, and Gandhi was always of the opinion, of the very firm opinion, that children should be taught only through the mother tongue. There were of course Hindi and Tamil, but both were corrupt versions of Hindi and corrupt versions of Tamil. He didn't want them to learn the wrong type of Hindi and the wrong type of Tamil. So at home he made the rule that only Gujarati should be spoken. So the children had a good grounding in Gujarati, but other subjects, Gandhi could not teach them properly at home. So he engaged a governess who would teach them English in the proper way, and other subjects also she would teach. There was another option, and that was to send them to a boarding school in India. But Mohandas Gandhi was against this idea of sending children to boarding schools. He was of the opinion that children should grow up under the care of their parents. They should receive the love of their parents. Of course, he did have to send Gokuldas and Harilal for brief periods to these boarding schools, but soon he called them back. When they grew up, Gandhi's sons complained that they were not given a proper education because of these odd theories that their father had about education. The third and fourth sons were born in South Africa after they settled down there. Their birthing was the next challenge that they had to cope with. Trained Indian nurses were not available at that time in South Africa. But fortunately, Mohandas Gandhi had a love of nursing, and he had managed to get some experience in that through volunteering at a hospital run by Dr. Booth, a hospital that was established by Pasi Rustamji. Plus, he also had read Dr. Tribhuvan Das's book, Mani Shikamen, that is advice to the mother. Armed with this knowledge and experience, we find him tackling the issues of caring for the mother, caring for the newborn baby, etc. The fourth one's birth in 1900 was the real test. The doctor could not reach in time, nor could the midwife. And so the husband had to turn midwife. With the knowledge that he had gained through Dr. Tribhuvan Das's book, he managed the whole thing. He did deliver the child quite safely because he followed every detail of what Dr. Tribhuvan Das had described in his book. And remembering the instructions of Dr. Tribhuvan Das, he delivered the child. That makes him one in a million. And silences the critics who say that Mahatma Gandhi was an indifferent husband, he was an uncaring father, and so on. How many husbands can claim such direct involvement in the birth of their children? With the birth of the fourth son, Mohandas Gandhi was led to thoughts about celibacy or brahmacharya. His body, his person had been a battlefield all his life. Two opposing forces contended for space in him. One was what he calls lustful love, or the desire for sexual indulgence, and the other was a kind of hatred of it, a thought of thinking away from sexual indulgence. Attraction and revulsion alternated. Gratification came to him unsought because of the system of child marriage. And there was no chance given to him to practice celibacy when he should have done it. That is, at the early age of his life, as a boy. As according to the Indian tradition, the brahmacharya was the first phase, the first stage in life. But he was not given that chance. So he was hurled into this vortex of indulgence, and he hated it. And now that he is in this phase of life, he had 4 children, and he had a lot of work to do in his life as a person in service of the public. The two things clashed. The time and attention that was needed to be a father, to be a responsible householder, really was something that got in the way of his commitment to public work. Brahmacharya or abstinence had been a part of his spiritual quest earlier, but now it had become a practical necessity. In his autobiography, Bapu discusses all these trials and temptations of his life openly. What most people try to hide, that is the most private aspects of their lives, he discusses openly. Ever since he became a public personality, there was nothing that he tried to hide. His life was, in a literal sense, an open book. So while discussing these things, while discussing brahmacharya, for example, he interrogates his relationship with Kasturba. He was faithful to his wife. That was true. But what does that boil down to actually? He was using her as an object for his gratification. There is nothing very glorious about that. He was actually objectifying her. So in modern parlance, Bapu would have held himself guilty of marital rape even. But one thing that he does not touch upon directly is woman's sexuality. Of course, he does mention that he told Kasturba about his decision, took her consent, and he also mentions that she was never the temptress. That is, she was never the initiator. But more on the topic, we don't find much in my experiments with truth. From 1901, attempts at self-control began. The attempt took the form of tiring the body out, sleeping in separate rooms, and so on. But the attempts did not work. I am reminded of Saint Augustine's prayer, give me chastity and temperance, but not yet. So it went on like that for some more time, and in 1906 he took the vow of celibacy at age 37. Writing about it at 56, Gandhi compares it to walking on the razor's edge. There is a story behind it. We'll come to it when the time comes. Brahmacharya does not mean merely abstinence from sex. It applies to abstaining from other pleasures as well. The aim or goal of Brahmacharya is the realization of Brahma, the ultimate reality. Abstinence is a means to that end. Abstaining from the pleasures of the palate is part of it, because food is a great aphrodisiac. It can be a substitute for sex. For some time he tried to manage with fruits and nuts, and there was a lot of relief. Lust could be kept at bay, he testifies. Milk also is a culprit, but then you cannot live without milk. There could be other problems because of it. Fasting was another means to rein in the senses. The mind should fully withdraw from all sensual thoughts. Simple living was another passion that took root in Gandhi while he was in South Africa. While in England as a student, he had to effect economies, he had to resort to cheaper living because he did not have enough money. But in South Africa, he was earning well, he had a good income, but still he did not want to be a spendthrift. There was great joy in reducing one's expenses. The first victim of this stinginess was the washerman. He was a pain in the neck for two reasons. He caused a bomb, first thing. Secondly, he never turned up in time. He would never bring the clothes in time. So Gandhi had to go out and buy new sets of ties and shirts and whatnot. So he began to do everything himself. He began to wash his clothes, iron them, keep them tidy, everything himself. So what we nowadays call DIY or do it yourself was something that Bapu practiced years ago. Even there he was a model, we should admit. Do it yourself had to be applied to hair cutting, as the English barber refused to cut the hair of a colored man. In one sense, Gandhi felt that it was a kind of punishment for him, because in India, the untouchable's hair is not cut by the barber belonging to a higher caste. So it was, in one sense, he was being punished for the sins of his people back in India. Gandhi and his family were going through all these lifestyle reforms when a major disruption shook them out of all this. What that disruption was, we will see in the next episode. Thank you.